Today I am going to show you how to paint a simple buttercup. Creeping buttercup, also known as Ranunculus repens, is a common buttercup found here in the Pacific Northwest, though it is introduced from Europe. In this video, I'm also going to show you some really cool art supplies I received from Meeden. I have a ceramic palette, a set of watercolor brushes, and some 10 by 7 inch cold pressed watercolor paper. I've never tried any of these products, and so I'm going to give them a try on this video and let you know what I think. Before we get started on painting our buttercup, I'm just going to unpackage and show you these lovely art supplies from Meeden. So here is the mini ceramic palette. It has 12 wells for paint, and then the lid acts as an additional color mixing space, and it's actually very compact, but I've been using it and I really have been enjoying it. Here are the brushes. There's 10. These are their regular watercolor brushes. There's also a professional line of watercolor brushes, which I will be showing you in another video. And so far the brushes are really good and they hold a really sharp point. And then the paper is 140-pound cold pressed, and I just cut it to size and hole punched it so it fits in my binder. So I'm going to jump right into getting this buttercup project underway. And originally I was just going to paint a little flower on some paper and show you, but then it just turned into me making another featured native plant painting. So this will be going in my featured native plant book, and I did the drawing. I just transferred it from an image that I took, and I changed the composition a little bit. So I usually use an image that I take a picture, and then I also just do some artistic interpretation for the layout, because it's really hard to take a picture that's laid out in the exact positioning you would like for a painting that is balanced. So I might make a separate video on exactly how I do that sometime. If you're interested in learning more about that, then comment below and let me know if I should make that video. So now I've gone over this in waterproof ink, and I'm removing the pencil with my kneaded eraser. And this paper seems pretty good. Honestly, it kind of feels, I think, the most similar to Arches paper, which is a really high quality paper. This is 100% cotton paper, so that is a marker of really nice paper. So we're painting a yellow flower, and one of the tricky things about that is how do you add any shading without making it look super muddy, because if you add a shadow color over top of yellow, it doesn't usually look good. So what I did is I do underpainting, which means you mix a very neutral light gray and then you underpaint. And because I'm doing that on the flower, I'm also going to do a little bit on the leaves so things look balanced. And to make that gray, you can use French ultramarine and light red, or French ultramarine and burnt sienna. I actually am using imidazzling brown by Holbein, so it's a little more purpley, but it's not what I would normally mix, but I put it in this palette because I wanted to try it out, and it is working out pretty good. So now I'm using two different types of yellow, a cooler yellow and a warmer yellow. So the yellows I have in this palette are lemon yellow and permanent yellow orange. And now I am just going around and painting. This is sort of my step one process where I paint and leave some of the white of the paper showing. So I'm actually not painting in the whole petal ever. I'm adding a little bit of green to the center, splattering my paper and mopping it up. And so this is my first go using the Meeden brushes. These are the regular line of watercolor brushes. And I honestly haven't painted with like a synthetic Taklon bristle for a long time, but I was pretty impressed with the water control, but very impressed with how sharp the point is and how precise I could get the color. Actually, honestly, better than the brushes the professional brushes I currently use right now. I would say the water flow and control is a little bit different, not necessarily bad. It's just you have to get used to it, but I could definitely continue on painting my native plant series with these brushes if need be. And they have 10 different sizes, and what I liked about this kit is they have a lot of different sizes of the round brushes, because that's really what I mostly use in botanical painting. Basically size 1 up to size 6, I believe. And then they have some of the square brushes and a fan brush as well. I've always wanted to try using the fan brush to paint a dandelion that's gone to seed. That thought that might work out well. Now I'm adding in the green for the stem, and again, it's really easy to do this with the smaller size 1 detail brush. And I'm making sure that I add in some darker areas, but also leave the lighter areas showing. And this is sort of my approach for botanical painting. And now this would be considered step 3, adding in smaller areas of concentrated color for more depth and contrast. And then I'm also making sure I add in yellow in between these little anthers. When you're using ink with watercolor, it makes the center of the flowers and other areas a lot easier because I'm doing that with ink and not having to do masking fluid or use a lot of tiny detail and building up form with a lot of blending washes. And then I like to add really dark areas beneath where the leaves connect and where things overlap because it really just makes things pop. So I'm really impressed with the Meeden watercolor paper. It is very similar to Arches paper, though it is a lot more economically priced. They have quite a few different sizes. Again, this was the 10 by 7 inch pad that I cut to size for my journal. And yeah, it's really similar, I'd say, to painting on Arches. The color carries nicely on the paper. It takes a lot of layers without buckling or lifting. Sometimes cheaper papers, if you try and layer up too much or more color, it just like starts lifting off the paper, and you don't have that issue at all here. So I would definitely paint on this paper again. It is lightly textured because it's cold pressed. So again, similar to the cold pressed Arches paper. I'm curious to know what it would be like to actually paint on the hot pressed version of this paper. If you're interested in picking up any of these supplies for yourself, you can check out the links in the video description below and get 12% off with my code. Back to how we are finishing up our buttercup. I'm working on some step 3 type items here. So what I'm doing is using my smaller round brush and adding small graded washes in between the areas of the veins, and the veins are already defined with the ink line, so this makes it a lot quicker for us. And then I'm just adding a little bit at the base of where the vein and the midrib meet and then blending it out. And this is something I do on all my paintings, any of my botanical subjects, in the step 3 process. And that is why I love my 3-step painting method, because I always know what I need to do next. I never second guess myself with which technique should I use or what should I do now to finish my painting, which really can stall you up, and then you just sort of get up and your painting time's over, and then you're not sure what to do next, and things go really slowly, and you don't get that satisfying boost of finishing a painting and feeling really happy with it and enjoying the process, which is the whole reason I created my 3-step painting method. And it wasn't for teaching, it was honestly just for myself so that I could paint more. Another thing I do is I add really dark concentrated color at the base of the leaves and where things overlap on the stems, and this really helps your painting pop out. You can also lift a little bit of color off and dab it with a paper towel if you feel like you've overpainted. Now I'm cleaning off my ceramic palette with a paper towel, and I'm mixing up my background color, and the color I'm using is the same that I used for the underpainting, which is French ultramarine and imidazzling brown. And now I am using the larger number 6 brush and starting a wet into wet wash for the background. So I'm quite happy with how this paper stood up to the wet into wet wash, because this can be a time when your paper really starts to buckle or you get sort of hard lines and blooms if you're using poor quality watercolor paper. So what you're looking for in good quality watercolor paper is it stands up to the water, like you've put it on, and here I'm adding more water in with my paint, so it doesn't buckle, and the texture stays the same with the water added. And then you can see how the color sort of just carries nicely and it flows along as I spread out the water. And that is also another sign of paper that is good quality. Often 100% cotton paper will allow you to do this. And then with my style, I always make sure that I lighten up the wash and color around the flower, and that I keep the darkest concentration of the background to the base of the plant and under the leaves, imitating what the light would look like in nature, because there's always more light around the flower, which is up higher than around the base of the leaves. Even though I'm using the number 6 brush, it is very impressive how sharp the point stays. So I haven't actually had to switch to a smaller brush when I add the color in around the leaves and the stem, which sometimes I do, because the point is staying really sharp. So I'm quite impressed with that. And it allows me to do this quicker and spread more color. You do always want to use the largest brush possible you can with the background, because it spreads the color out in a smoother way without disrupting the color as you lay it down onto the paper. Now I dried that, and you didn't see that on film, and I've added more water, and now I'm adding a second layer in some areas just to even out the wash, because sometimes it doesn't work out, perfectly on the first go, which is fine. You just need to make sure you dry everything completely before you start putting your second layer of wet into wet on. So I really enjoyed painting this little buttercup. I hope you give it a try as well, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. And again, if you want another video on how I do my drawings and layout, then comment below. And I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this video, then I think you will also like this video here on how to paint lupin. And I would like to thank Meeden for sending me these art supplies to try out and show you.